What up, guys? Jason Guyman here with PressureWashHelp.com. And today we got a special guest with Mr. Rodney that does a lot of commercial work. And so we're going to talk a little bit about commercial and pressure washing and all of the fun things that go along with running a pressure washing business. A little bit of a background with him. He's also a full-time firefighter. I know we got lots of firefighters on here that do both what we're doing right now. And so, before I get started, I wanted to just say that I do have a training coming up in a couple weeks in Fredericksburg, Virginia. It's an in-person, hands-on training, so you actually do the pressure washing, not watch somebody do it. So go check that out. You can check that out at pressurewashhelp.com/in-person training. So Rodney, tell me a little bit about who are you, family, that kind of thing.
Yeah, my name's Rodney Strickler. Live here in Daphne, Alabama, down here on the coast in between Mobile and Pensacola. I'm a captain for the city of Biloxi. Been there between 14 and 15 years, going on 15 years. And this is my, it's like I was telling him, this is my part-time gig that's actually all consuming now. So not complaining, just been really blessed and grateful.
So when did you start your pressure washing business?
It was the end of 2016. I had just went through a divorce, and I was doing odd stuff because if you know firemen, every fireman has something, a side gig. You know this. You were a fireman. So there's guys on here that's going to be able to relate to that. We're all doing something. Most of them do yard work, something like that. But I realized at that point when I got divorced that I was going to have to do something more than what I was doing. Thank you. So some of the firemen I work with, actually two of them, they own pressure washing companies. One of them is one of the biggest companies on the coast. And then another one he's smaller, does mostly residential stuff. They're all firemen. So I was picking their heads and picking their brains and what should I do? You think there's enough business out there for me, this and that? And he's like, why don't you just come along with me one day? So I did. I went, I watched him do one residential house, and went back home that day and talked to my dad. My dad had a spare utility trailer that he wasn't using. He said, sure, you can use it. And I called Russ Johnson at Southside Equipment. Everybody knows Russ. And I said, here I am. I don't know anything about it. Tell me what to do. So I bought my first machine from him. It was a 5.5 gallon minute belt-driven machine on wheels. I could have towed the thing around if I wanted to. I just put some tie-down straps on that sucker, strapped it down, got me a $50 used 225 gallon. The tanks in the I'm losing my train of thought in the rack. The bulk tank.
Yep.
Plumbed that sucker in, bought a couple cheap reels, and I was off to the races.
So that was in 2016. So you started out doing residential work, I take it?
I did, and actually it's funny because this question gets asked on these forums probably at least once a week about Home Advisor. Everybody knows Home Advisor. Well, I was that guy. I signed up with Home Advisor. Now, and I can tell you based on my experience with Home Advisor, and this is just me speaking, Home Advisor got me started in this business. So now, would I recommend them now based on what I'm hearing and based on them changing a lot of their business strategies and all that? I don't know. I haven't done any research on them in a long time, so I don't know. But what I can tell guys is it worked for me initially. I got my first job from Home Advisor. So then I started, word of mouth stuff.
So Home Advisor, I'm with you. It does suck sometimes. But if you work it right, Home Advisor can get you work and keep you busy. The biggest thing with Home Advisor is if you're one person that you're not keeping up with it and you're not rejecting the bids that are false and that kind of thing, you don't answer your phone when the phone rings or they give you that quote. That's the thing about Home Advisor. You have to give that quote exactly right when that happens.
You have to be on top of it. You have to be on top of it. And yes, I would get people that I would call and I'd be the first caller or the second caller. And I can't even really remember now how it works, but, and you could tell who was just shopping, shopping for numbers and shopping for quotes and shopping to see what was out there. And yes, that money call comes out of your, pocket, but it's just something that you just had to deal with and move on to the next one and hope the next one was a legit, client.
So you've kind of went from residential. How fast did you get into commercial right away, or did you do residential for a while?
Did residential for a little while, but I knew based on these other firemen that I worked with that end result was where I wanted to be, which was commercial. And what I did was, and this was a painful process, I just started knocking on doors. And I told you a while ago before we started the live chat that my first commercial contract was Dunkin' Donuts. And I literally, when I say I beat these people up, I literally beat them up. I was relentless on them. Email after email after email.
What? You mean you just can't send one email and think that's going to get you business?
If guys think they can send one email and they think they're going to just have it made, they're in the wrong line of work. I literally, when I say I was relentless to the point of being obnoxious on these folks, that's how it was for me. I can't even tell you. I would show up, I would drop stuff off, I would send emails, and finally, she said, "Okay, we're going to give you a chance," and that's where it all began.
But you kept over and over. And how long of a period was this? Was this a week or was this a month? Or
are you kidding me? Yeah, it was months. Months.
So once we got your first contract of Dunkin' Donuts and they tried you out, I'm assuming then you got more and more after that, correct?
That's right. And like I told you, I've been very blessed with this. And I always, when people ask me these questions that you're asking me, I always answer these folks with, this is where I'm at today. I'm blessed, but I know that it can go away tomorrow. I'm here today, but I know it could disappear tomorrow. So I always stay grounded. I always try to stay humble. And I just, timing was one of my big things. Like I started beating these hospitals up and I would email these guys and I would send 10, 15, 20 emails to various businesses, to various hospitals, to various casinos, whatever it took. And I might get one response, maybe, if I'm lucky.
Now, how was you finding these emails? Were you just looking them up on their website? Was you what was the source of trying to get the emails?
Any way possible that I could get a contact name, I would cold call. I used to cold call these folks and still do to a certain point. But I would Google phone numbers. I would call a hospital. As a matter of fact, I did this just last week. I called 2 hospitals in a town that I haven't broken into yet that I'm trying to, and I talked to the front desk receptionist, the person that answers all the phones calls for anybody calling into the hospital, just your average Joe. And I said, I would like to speak to someone in facilities, or, who do you think that I should speak to, or whatever. And I would get transferred to somebody else, and then they would transfer me to somebody else, and I would leave emails, and I would leave messages, and and just hope that somebody will email me back, or hope that somebody will call me back.
But I love this because I talk about this a lot of being consistent, prolific, and relentless. Those are the 3 things that you got to do. This isn't one of these things of one and done and, well, they must not want us. It don't matter if we're going for commercial work or residential work or whatever. If we're doing mailers, we can't send one mailer out and say, well, that didn't work. We got to send out 3, 4, 5 times. Consistent, right. Prolific, relentless, over and over and over. And if you get told no, you just keep sending stuff, right? Now, how big of a business have you grown it to in the last 5 years? Or how many guys is it just you, or do you have employees, or what?
It depends. It depends on the job. I have one guy that's been with me since the very beginning. He actually works a full-time job also, Monday through Friday. So he's a nighttime guy and he's a weekend guy. And then when I have big projects, he will ask off if I get, as long as I give him time in advance, he will ask off from his 9-to-5 job during the week and come help me. And I try to back everything up if it's a big job, like a Thursday, Friday, and then through the weekend, something like that, to make it as easy on him as I possibly can. But it depends on the job. I've had jobs where I've had 4 or 5 people on, and then a lot of times it's just me. I do a lot of doctor's offices bi-monthly that I don't need help on. I just, with my equipment, I can get in, like Leon always says, you can get in and get out. Well, there's truth to that. So we get in and we get out. That's one benefit of having, the kind of setups that we do, the kind of setup that I do. So, but it just depends on the job, to answer your question, how many employees I bring in. I do have, firemen are always looking for part-time work. So I will always try to bring in firemen, some of my coworkers, because we work 24 on, 48 off. So I'll try to schedule, jobs on those 2 days off and bring those guys in too, because typically, they're hard workers.
Gotcha.
So,
yeah, they usually know. Well, once they've been on the fire department for a while, they know how to use equipment too.
that's right.
Some of the
Yeah.
new guys don't know how to use
They do not. They do not at all. It's funny that you say that.
We've had 2 guys come on that has never mowed grass in their life.
Oh, I know. All they do is play video games nowadays.
They're good with their thumbs.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Ray Burke put, my largest account took a solid year of cold calling. This is something that is, whether we're cold calling, we're, getting an email list, we're hammering that email list, and there's ways to get, email lists that we can do that. Obviously calling, trying to find out who the person is. LinkedIn is a great resource now that we can use that, if they work at the hospital, we can look up the hospital, we can look up titles of their businesses or what their jobs are. So, LinkedIn is a good way to get commercial work. And again, this is something, and a lot of times with commercial work, just because we bid it this year, we might not actually do it till next year, especially if it is a large job, because they got to put it in their budget. And so now we're dealing with budget stuff. And
had that happen. I just had this happen. I had a PO. I had one of my hospital contacts call me, and they're like, his exact words when he got on the phone with me, and this is words that everybody wants to hear. I've got some money to spend, is what he told me. And this is a major hospital here locally. And I said, I'm all ears. Tell me all about it. He said, I need this, this, and this, and this done. He said, but I need you to have it invoiced by X date, which was not very far out. So I had a lot of work to do in a short period of time to get there. But I was waiting on the PO to come through. Well, it didn't come through. So I called him or emailed him or called him or whatever, texted him. I'm like, hey, just checking on that PO. And he's like, hey, he said, we just had a big boiler go out at the hospital. He said, can we push this back by a month or whatever? Right. We got to fit it in the budget. Budget's what we're dealing with right now. That's a huge player in the game that these younger guys are they just gotta, it's going to hurt their feelings sometimes. My feelings get hurt sometimes. Everybody's feelings are going to get hurt sometimes. So I've been dealing with a lot of that lately too.
So a lot of times, a lot of people don't realize about commercial is you'll put a lot of money up front and you don't get money to the end. How have you dealt with that? Once you get going with it, it's not so bad, because then it's just kind of reoccurring. You get a big lump sum and then you go for a couple months. But when that first started of doing that, how did you deal with those ups and downs?
Well, I always was fortunate again and blessed to when I started, I said, I'm going to live on my fire department salary, and all my pressure washing money, it's going in the bank, and it's going for, new equipment, to better the business, in other words. So, man, I stockpiled money really fast. So I was very fortunate that I never had to run into that problem to where I had to worry or have sleepless nights about how I'm going to get through this job and then have to wait to get paid. I've always been, like I said, blessed where I didn't have to worry about that. And I'm very thankful for that, because I could see where that would be very stressful for some of these other guys that's not fortunate enough to be able to do that. But I will tell you that I just completed a hospital. I don't know. It's been 3 months ago now, but they were purchased, and I was brought in to clean it on day one when the new owners took over. Well, the billing system for that hospital hadn't had the kinks worked out, and this was a very large chunk of change. And it was an entire hospital cleaning, top to bottom. Well, I didn't get paid. I literally did not get paid for this job for almost 3 months.
And you had lift rental probably, and
had lift rental, had everything. I mean, everything that you can imagine. And this job was an hour and a half from my house. So, I mean, traveling, I mean, it was big, but I never would have been able to do that. And some of these guys out there probably wouldn't able to be able to do that, because that can become very stressful. If you're doing this full time and you're living on this money as well. I mean, I don't know how some of these guys do it that run into those problems. I'm not sure. I've just been fortunate enough to where I never had to worry about that too much, and I'm very thankful for that.
Now, the other thing that a lot of times, which I know the answer to this, so that's why I'm gonna ask you, but do you ask for money up front, like 10% or so much up front, or do you just do it? They usually just bill it out at the end of the job.
I just bill everything out at the end of the job.
Yeah, and that's what most people do whenever you're dealing with.
I feel like that. My personal opinion on that, and I know guys are going to differ with me, and that's okay. But my personal opinion on that, I want to do everything I can to get the job and keep this thing going with these folks. So the easier I can make it on them is going to benefit me in the long run.
Yep, amen. I agree on that 100%. Because you got to remember, these people got 50 different, you're dealing with facility managers, and they got 50 other things, like you said, they got the boiler, they got windows, they got everything.
Yes. I'm like a crumb to them.
And if you can make their job as easy as possible, and even as in, if you're up on that building cleaning and you see something wrong, you let that customer know, because then at that point they will use you all the time, because you're making their life easier. Yes, you might cost them more of, hey, you got an issue, but when you point those things out, that will separate you more so than anything else from your competitors.
Funny that you say that point right there, because just not last weekend, but the weekend before, we're in the middle of a hospital cleaning locally here for a hospital in Mobile, and we started out, we're doing 3 big buildings on property. Well, I come down to starting a 3rd building 2 weekends ago, and we get one side done, start on the other side, and these exterior lights that are hanging on the outside and on the 1st level, we start spraying, and I mean within 30 seconds, fire blows 3 feet out from the side of the wall, smoke starts pouring out, and you know that sound. And I told my guys, I'm like, stop, we're done. I said, get the fire extinguisher, everything. We're in a panic, making sure that there's no fire inside the wall, blah, blah, blah. This is on a weekend, so nobody's there. So I started making phone calls. I called the head of facilities, and I called my other contact person. And I said, we're done until we get this electrical situation taken care of. I said, I'm not going to be the guy that causes a hospital to catch on fire. So anyway, they came out there, and that's exactly your point, is exactly what they said. They said, thank you for letting us know what's going on. They said, if it hadn't been for you, and what you're doing out here, we would have never known. So I said, and I told them, I said, I'm not trying to get anybody in trouble here, and I'm not trying to be, the bearer of bad news, but this is the reality of it. And I literally walked them around the hospital, that building, and showed them all the deficiencies, and they were grateful for that. Is my point, is to go along with what you were saying.
Yep, because a lot of times you're up on that lift, you're in places that they don't see, they don't always pay attention, and like I said, they got 150 things going on trying to get stuff, the budget. They're not only trying to fix the toilets and all the other stuff inside, they got all the outside, they got 957 things to do. And so, even when we're emailing these people trying to do that, we don't need this big, long, beautiful email that says you do all these things. You got to keep it simple. 1, 2, 3 lines. Keep it simple. Hey, just reaching in to see if you need any pressure washing done. This is what we do. That's it. Because again, these people have so much to do. Property managers as a whole, whether we're talking hospitals, apartment complexes, these people got so much to do. They don't need these extra things. And the worst thing that I see it all the time is these people you'll want to ask 152 questions to these people. They don't care.
Right.
They want a price and they want it done. That's what they want. Simple, easy, done.
That's it. That's exactly right. You couldn't have said it better. I mean, like I said, I'm just a blip on their radar, and you're so right when it comes to other bigger fish to fry.
As Ray put, be your facilities department eyes and ears. That's what you're being. You're helping them out by making their job easy. When you make their job easy, they will want to hire you over and over and over again. And even if you're not the cheapest and you're helping them out, and they'll give you pointers that you know how to bid, things like that at the end of the day.
Yep, that's right.
So when you started getting into commercial, what was that kind of the end game of just doing all commercial, or how much commercial versus residential do you do now?
I could probably count on two hands the number of houses I wash a year, maybe three hands, and that's no exaggeration. I just don't do a lot of residential. Now I don't advertise for residential. And to be honest with you, and again, I want the guys to understand when I say this, I'm not saying this to be better than anybody else, because I'm not. I don't say this to be braggadocious, because I'm not. But I don't advertise. I don't. Right now, I don't have to advertise. Now, again, that's not saying that won't change tomorrow, because it could. It could very well change tomorrow. But I didn't spend a penny on advertising in 2020.
But how much time did you spend on the phone trying to get people, networking with people? That's the difference. I think a lot of times people get down this road of I got to spend money in advertising, and I understand, but there's different ways to spend money, and at the end of the day, time is money, and that's what I always say. You either spend time or money to do it. So, but when you're going after commercial and you're kind of niched down into the hospital, bigger stuff anyway, you're going after those people. And at that point, you're going, like you said, you spent time on the phone trying to find out who these other people are in another town. So that way you can build that relationship. You can build that, what their needs are and stuff like that at the end of the day.
Yeah, and the thing about me in the company is, again, I've been blessed, because I don't have a lot of commercial clients. I just have a few very loyal commercial clients. So they're calling me all the time, and they're giving me almost as much business as I can stand, sometimes too much business. So I really am one of those guys that at the point I'm at now, I don't have to spend time on the phone. I don't really do any of that, because the phone, they're always, this niche group is always just keeping me busy. Like I said, I don't even know how many doctors' offices bi-monthly, hospital emergency room entrances, and where the ambulances pull up. Some of those we do every single month. Some of them we do every 2 months. These hospitals that I'm working for in Mississippi, they're getting to where they're doing all their medical offices and stuff. They're doing all their building washes once a year. And so far, I've been the guy that they use. Now that could change tomorrow, but as of right now, that's where I'm at.
And that goes back to what I was saying, what I've said before on the commercial side of, Benjamin Gregory, that he's a local guy to me. he does a lot of LinkedIn, and he got one connection on LinkedIn and did over $150,000 off of one connection. And it's basically doing exactly this. Hey, we got these set of apartments. Hey, we also got these set of apartments. And when you start getting into that group and you go do that, that is a lot about how you do your commercial work. And then a lot of it is just breaking into that group, figuring out how to get into it, and you can do a lot of money by sitting there and not having to go doing a bunch of chasing work of everywhere else at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I want to, and this, I don't know if you're going to cover this topic or not, but I want to bring up another point. I see, I'm on all these Facebook forum groups, and it is what it is. But on these groups, I see a lot of these guys posting on their live videos and pictures of them, out doing work and stuff. I try to keep it, for myself, what works for me, very professional. If I go to meet somebody, I'm dressing accordingly. If I go out to these job sites, I try to have my equipment cleaned up, my trucks washed, to make that first impression, that initial appearance. And some of these guys on here, I see, I just don't understand. Anyway, my point is professionalism. You got to be professional, man. I can't preach that enough. Your first appearance is what makes or breaks a lot of this stuff. These guys are not going to go for somebody that comes in and, long hair, greasy hair, your personal appearance, your grooming, all that stuff goes a long way with this. And I just shake my head sometimes when I see these cats and they're wondering why they don't have work. And I just want to scream at them. If you'd be just a little more professional, you might be a little bit further down the road. But I just wanted to throw that in there. I didn't know if you're going to go down that highway or not. But that's
a good point. I want to hit on that some more because, I used to work for, I used to be a fire truck mechanic, and the guy I worked for was named Bill Vogelpool, and he grew a pretty big business of doing that. And he was the local fire chief at his little area when he first started. And he's like, we looked like a bunch of idiots out there because we was a bunch of idiots out there when we were doing this stuff. And he's like, you know what? I made them all go get the same T-shirt. So that way you can't tell the idiots from the idiots apart at that point. So at least they all look like a bunch of idiots, or at least if you got one or two that looks halfway decent, at least we look like we know what we're doing at the end of the day.
At least it was in sync. Yeah, for sure.
And that goes a long way. And you got to remember, a lot of these facility managers and stuff like that, oh, that's my gray beard. A lot of these facility managers and stuff like that are usually high-end people, and they're not. Some of them might be the Joe Schmo down here, but the ones that you have to deal with aren't the Joe Schmoes. They're the ones higher up are the ones you have to deal with, and the decision makers are the ones you want to be in good with, because if you're in good with the decision makers, that will get you a long way. And again, when we're going into these hospitals and apartment associations and stuff like that, and we look like, bleached out clothes, and they don't want that stuff. You don't look professional. You don't look, and I haven't really brought that up, but that does go a long way of looking professional. If you don't know what you're doing and you look the part, that will get you a long way in the end.
Always. Yep, I agree. And just to add on to that, that hospital job I told you about a while ago that I didn't get paid for like 3 months. Well, prior to me starting that job, I met with my contact out there, and he told me, he said, what I want you to do is pull your equipment around to the back. He goes, and I want you to do a demo. I want you to do a test strip on a before and after. And whenever you get done, all the presidents and the CEOs of all these hospitals along the coast, they're here. They're on site because this is the first day that we own this hospital, and they're here checking everything out. They want to come out and look at it. So I said, okay, no problem. So I pulled around there, started doing the test area. Well, before I could get through, I turned around and I had about 6 guys in suits and ties standing back there. And these guys are the decision makers. These guys right here are the top of the top, and they're looking at me. They're looking at me spraying this building. They're looking at my equipment. They're looking at how I'm dressed. They're looking at everything. They're just sitting back there. And it was intimidating. I'm not going to lie to you. Even for me, that's been in this business, for a while, dealing with these kind of people, but having 6 or 7 guys back there standing in suits and ties watching me do this, I'm like, man, I got to be on my game for this, because this is a do or die right here. So anyway, it worked out in my favor, thankfully. But you were right.
The good thing about that too is they probably own other hospitals that you can get in front of them, and you already proved that you can do it, and then you prove that you can do big jobs. Let's talk a little bit about, because this is something that a lot of people get scared of this big giant building. How did you overcome cleaning these big giant buildings? And what I'm going to tell you is I always tell people, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. But how did you overcome or even now, sometimes I know even me, when I was still pressure washing and I would get to them big jobs and you get the butterflies in your stomach and you're like, how the hell am I going to get all this done in this time frame? How do you overcome that, or how did you do that kind of stuff?
Man, I'll tell you, when I first started doing this, the big stuff, there were a lot of sleepless nights leading up to, there's a lot of factors go in. Whenever you have a $2,000, 120-foot lift sitting on site, $2,000 a day, I mean, things have to happen. You got to make things happen. And I never will forget it, man. One of my first big buildings to wash, this guy brought me in and he's like, I just want you to wash this side and this side, and, pointing out different stuff. And I'm like, okay. And this sucker was, I think that building in particular was 7 stories. And I just remember saying, like you said, all you can do is to get in and do it to it.
Right. So
we did. My little 5.5 gallon minute machine back then, I downstreamed the crap out of that building. And I took some good, this was back whenever I was taking good before and afters and all that stuff. And I sent them over to them. I was all happy and they were happy. And that was my first, like, okay, I got this done. I'm good, man. I'm getting this thing. I'm getting the feel of this. But that's not to say when I pull up like that job, that big one I just finished up, man, it's still, it's still butterflies. I mean, if you think you know it all in this business, I don't know what to tell you. I can tell you that I learn something every single day. And another thing I've learned, this goes on to along with what you're saying, and for these new guys, I've always, every time I say, oh, well, if everything goes right, we can get it done in X amount of time. If everything goes right, we can get it done in X amount of time. Well, I can here to tell you, it's not going to go right.
Something's going to go wrong.
Something is always going to go wrong. Somewhere, somehow, some way, it's going to go wrong. And that's the kind of stuff you have to plan for and you have to budget in for. Just it's a learning process, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So that's a good point of, I like, because it is one of those that it don't matter what you do, water don't work, you break something, the lift quit working. I mean, your machine quits working, everything's going to happen. It don't matter. You can have the backup for the backup for the backup, and stuff is going to happen.
It is. It is.
So when we're bidding these jobs, how do you bid your jobs? I know we bid our jobs. We would try to do it by the hour per the day, lay at our lift. Is that kind of how you do the bigger jobs, or do you have?
Yeah, I was very fortunate to get in with a gentleman that had the contract for University of South Alabama here. He'd been doing that for 10 years, and I was trying to get that contract as well, and it wasn't coming up because he still had like 3 years left on the contract. Well, anyway, this goes back to cold calling, what we talked about earlier. Because what I did was I looked up who had the contract, what his business name was, his contact information, because I had heard through the grapevine that he didn't live locally anymore. He lives in Texas. And so I got his number and I called him. And I said, hey, man, I said, this is me. This is what I do. I said, I'm here locally. If you ever need any help, if you ever need any assistance, because I know you live over in Texas and I'm here, because what he would do is he'd get a big group of buildings together, and then he'd pull all of his equipment over here from Texas and knock them all out in a week or so, a week and a half, whatever it took, and he'd take everything back to Texas. So I called him up and I said, hey, I said, if you ever need any help with anything, I'm here. Let me know, whatever. Well, a year and a half, 2 years went by. Finally, one day my phone rang. And he said, hey, this is such and such. Remember me? And I said, yes, I do. He said, would you be interested in taking over the contract for me and just me subbing you out to do all the work out there? And I said, absolutely. He said, well, I'm going to be coming through town here. He said, let's sit down and meet. So we did, and make a long story short, I did the contract work out there for him for the last 2 years, up until it recently changed and I got outbid, which that happens as well. I mean, you can't win them all. And so I had him as a great mentor. He taught me a lot. And we went and looked at a couple properties together that he was going to bring me in on and stuff like that. And he always told me, he said, look at the building. And he said, figure out how much time you think it's going to take you to do from here to here. Okay. Factor that in. And then go around and figure out how much time it's going to take you to think, go from there to there. And that's how I do things. That's how I do it today. Now, that's not going to work for everybody. That's what works for me. So that's kind of how I do my commercial. Now, the flat work, the concrete, the flat work, stuff like that, I will still measure big stuff,
It's a little bit easier to, like, I knew my guys could do 1,500 square feet per hour. And if I want to shoot for
Right.
$300 an hour, I can say,
Yeah.
all right, this is going to take, I can, if you got 15,000 square feet, then I know how much long it's going to take me. So then I can bid it out a little bit easier.
Right.
But on building side, there is no, well, I charge 8 cents per square foot for the building. We charge by time, just like you were saying, of figuring out how long is it going to take us, or add about, when you're first starting, add another day onto it, because you're probably going to, and maybe even your second one.
Absolutely. Now there is a contract. I have the contract for USA Women's and Children's here in Mobile. It's another hospital, and when they bid it out, they actually required whoever was submitting a bid to do a square foot price, even on the buildings. Up to, I think it was 1 to 2 stories was one price, and then if you went above 2 stories on up, it was a different price. But they wanted a per square foot price, and their reasoning behind that was, and I get it, not that I agree with it, but I get it. Their reasoning was, well, what if we only want to watch 2 sides of the building,
right?
Or whatever. So anyway, I did have to do a square foot price on that. But that's the only one I've ever been asked to do something crazy like that on.
So you started out downstream, and how are you cleaning these buildings now? Are you using the AR pump, or how are you?
Yeah, I've switched over. I just built this new trailer. It's only been in service now for, I don't know, I think we put it in service December, January, somewhere around there. And I'm still tweaking on it. Matter of fact, I just got it back from doing some other things on it 2 days ago. But we're running two AR-45s on it.
Are you running 8-gallon a minute pressure washers also, or 10?
I got two 10 cold waters, and I got one 8-gallon minute hot water machine on there.
And what's your water tank size on it?
I've got 2 535-gallon tanks on it.
Now, do you have an easy way to hook to a hydrant at all, or do you hook to many hydrants?
I have a hydrant connection plumbed straight into my tank to where I just roll some fire hose out and able to fill those suckers up.
Gotcha.
Pretty
so
quick.
You're using the 2 ARs. So you're using one if you're doing it by yourself. How far are they? I've never shot one of those much. How far are they? Or how much the distance on those are you getting?
Well, I'm using the. I'm a little different than most guys because I went ahead and went with the 5/8 hose. Most guys I think use 1/2-inch hose on those. I went with 5/8. I've got 300 foot of 5/8 on each of my reels for that, and and I'm using that red gun that everybody always talks about, that Leon put everybody onto. And I'm getting the other day we shot. It was of course there was no wind. Wind's always a factor, but this morning there was no wind. We were getting 40 foot, 35, 40 feet vertical out of it.
And that's flowing. What are them? It's flowing 9 gallon a minute, isn't it?
It's 11 gallons a minute.
11 a minute. Now, are you going through a mixer valve on that, or are you going?
I'm going through a proportioning system. I'm going through. Actually bought my systems out of from Midwest Washing.
Mm-hmm.
Brian over there. We're doing had some issues with those systems, and actually I got two sitting down there right now that I got to put on tomorrow. As a matter of fact, we had a couple issues with them that we're working together to get it dialed in. But
So Ray said, or that's not what I want. Ray said that running that 5/8 that his panties can't handle that 5/8 that he can only handle that 1/2 inch hose. So you must be a good fireman or something.
it's not that bad. It's not that bad. It's
I was
worth
gonna,
it. It's worth it for the little extra volume and reach.
I'd say it probably gives you quite a bit, especially since you're flowing 300 feet of hose. That would be a lot of friction loss that you're dealing with if you did it through the 1/2 inch. Because I think 1/2 inch friction loss is almost like 34 per 100 versus 5/8, I believe, is only like
Let the
12.
fireman come out of you with those ratios.
I know you like that. I'm all about friction loss, dude.
Yeah, and
And I know you're just you're the AO, so you don't know nothing about or you're not the AO. You're just the captain. You don't know nothing about that AO stuff.
that's right. That's right. I just tell those boys what to do. No, I'm just kidding. I don't.
Hey, this work still don't.
Yeah, yeah. No, and these AR pumps, man. There's so many people that they're so hot right now. It's a hot topic with everybody. AR or these comets, and then versus the air systems and all that. This is what I'll tell guys, and this is what I said the other day in this little Facebook thing that was going on that some of these guys on here probably know about.
Most of these guys actually aren't in the Facebook group because I tell them not to be in them because it's just a bunch of. Some of them are.
Okay, I got you. It's personal preference. That's what it comes down to. It's what works for you, and screw everybody else. I mean, we can get opinions from everybody else, and we'll take those opinions into consideration. But at the end of the day, it's what works for you. It's what works for me. If downstreaming works for you, then by God, downstream. And it's like I told these guys the other day, these ARs are working for me right now. But that's not to say that next week I'm going to get a belly full of it and switch to something else.
Right.
Because that's entirely possible. This is an ever-changing game. And you just got to play the game.
And there's always a hot topic. It's kind of the ARs now. It was the booster pumps last year, 2 years. That was the big fangle dangle, and now people having all kinds of issues with those that they only last so long. And the 12 volts, and I mean, it's like you said, it's the name of the. I had 12 volts on my truck just because we didn't do a lot of the hospital side. We did a lot of commercial work. We did a lot of apartment complexes and stuff like that. But that's all downstreaming mostly because that's all vinyl, at the end of the day. When we're dealing with this kind of stuff, you kind of need to, we used our 12 volts enough that would get us through for that. But that's what it is what it is, and I like
Right.
that how you said that of, what you use today might not be what you use tomorrow or the next day at the end of the day.
Right.
They might blow up, they might be stupid and give you all kind of issues. And then you're like, screw this.
Yep. That's exactly right. And that's how I'm looking at this. I know these pumps, they're as some of the guys that sold them to me, North Georgia Airless and Etowah Chemicals and all those guys, they see these pumps more than anybody, and they know exactly about the reliability, and their exact words on them. Yeah, they're fragile. They are fragile. And I know they're fragile. I went into this knowing that they're fragile, so you just gotta do your due diligence. And I rinse my pumps out, probably more than the average person. I mean, I'll let the thing run 15, 20 minutes after we get done, just pumping water. But I've got the ability to do that because I've got over 1,000 gallons of water on my trailer. So, it just depends.
No, that's a good point, and I like that because the other thing, how are they shooting once you get up in the bucket? Are they still giving you? They're probably not giving you some distance because you're losing friction loss of whenever you're going up.
I mean, the higher you go, it's gonna. I mean, it's inevitable. You're gonna lose. You're gonna lose volume. You're gonna lose pressure. It's just how it's the name of the game. The higher you go.
So what's the biggest building you ever cleaned, tall wise? Or I should say,
Man,
what's the biggest lift you've been on?
we use 125 on a regular.
I hate that. I
Yeah.
used the 135 and I did not
Let
like
me
it.
tell you, that brings another point. These guys out here that say, oh, I'm not scared of getting a lift. I'm not scared. Well, I can tell you this. I've been in a many of 125s, and I've been in a many of fire trucks that are 125 feet tall, and I still, to this day, will get tensed up if the wind blows just a little too much, or if I move it just a little too quick, or something like that. It's scary. It just is. And if somebody tells you it's not, they're lying.
I never forget the one when we had the 135 up there, and we were at the very end where we had to be all the way up, and this was the last day. So it was Thursday. So we had been on there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And we're on this on Thursday, and me and my good friend up there was up there, and I'm like, "Why is this thing shaking so much?" He's like, "Look at your knees; they're going." I'm like, "We got to get this done, and we got to get out of here, otherwise I can't handle this
It
thing."
happens for sure. I'm trying to. I bid some water towers that the easiest way to clean them is with a lift, and we're talking bigger than 125s on
Right.
these. And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't even want to think about it.
That's getting into almost a crane lift at that point, isn't it?
Yeah, that would be the best way to do it for sure. But we're trying to break into some other stuff. We're doing. I'm obviously with the fire department. I'm rope rescue certified and all that stuff, and we want to break off into doing some rope work. That niche that hardly anybody does. Or very few people do. So we're looking at doing some stuff. We've been on a job for the Beau Rivage Casino there
How
in
does
Biloxi.
that work with the SH and that with the ropes and stuff?
Well, it depends on who you talk to. Some people say that if you get SH on it, that it's a one-time use rope. You can get chemical resistant, as you
Say you
know.
probably got to talk to the rope manufacturer. Is that correct?
Right. It's like they always used to say in the fire department, the manufacturer's recommendations.
Right, right. What about the equipment? Like obviously, your carabiners and all of that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, that's all. That's uncharted water yet. So we'll see. I'm trying to talk to a lot of guys that have done it, or I'll say a lot. Some guys that have done it, and then other stuff is just get out there and do it. And hope for the best and see what happens.
Right.
So it's a learning curve, I guess.
So tell me one thing that you failed in your business and one or two things you learned from it.
Man, I feel like a failure a lot. Like for example, when I got the phone call on Friday that this PO that I was going to have was going to be a $10,000 PO, went down to maybe a $1,000 or $2,000 PO. I mean, I'm going to tell you right now, that was on Friday. I got that phone call right before days in, and it broke my heart.
Right.
I mean, broke my heart. And so I felt like a failure then. I felt like, well, man, maybe I did I overbid it? They're not out soliciting other bids. They're just doing some of the washing in house. It's a budget thing. Like you said a while ago, it's a budget thing. So I always feel like I fail, when stuff comes down to like that, even though I know a lot of that stuff's out of my control. And I think, man, as far as learning goes, man, I learn something every single day. I can't put my finger on one thing. I mean, I literally learn something every single day. I screw
Do
up.
you read books or what? How are you learning?
Man, I don't read a lot of books.
Do you listen
And I
to
know that
books or podcasts or anything?
I don't. I haven't. I probably should, but I haven't. A lot of it's trial and error, and then I'll just. I know that a while ago you said you're not a fan of Facebook stuff, and I don't get on it a ton, but I do. I do read through that stuff, and these guys, a lot of them's done it. If you haven't, a lot of them out there, some of them out there have. So you can pick their brains and stuff like that. Or I've been known to private message guys and ask them messages like that before. But I think if I come down to the day where I think that I know it all, then it's time for me to quit.
Right, right,
Time
right.
for me to quit.
So self-limiting beliefs can hurt us and hold us back and stuff like that, or disbelief doubts. Have you had any disbelief doubts or self-limiting beliefs, and how did you overcome those?
Expand on that. What exactly are
So
you?
a self-limiting belief could be something that it's a lot about mindset, that you can't do it, you don't think you can do it, stuff like that.
Yes. Um, yeah. I mean, I think I'd be silly to say that I do have thoughts. And like you said, it comes down to a lot of the sleepless nights that I have, and I still have those. I mean, I still get butterflies before the base. Like I've got a very large pool deck for a country club here coming up to do. And this is just flat work stuff. This is easy peasy. This is get in and get out stuff. But I get myself so worked up over this kind of stuff, hoping everything goes right, hoping the outcome is what they want it to be, to where they call me back. And I'm very anal. I'm very OCD. So I'll go. Sometimes I will take too much time doing something that shouldn't have taken as much time.
Right.
But that's just, it's a mind thing. So.
I got you. Awesome. So we're at 50 minutes here. We got about 120 on here, so we're doing pretty good. We're not at a record, but we're there. What if you have any words for a new guy or somebody that's trying to grow a pressure washing business? What you got? Any words of encouragement?
Oh, well, yeah, I think so, man. I think, I posted, some guy put on that one of the forums the other day, about his equipment and where he started at and where he's at now. And I took a picture of my first setup and where I'm at now. And all I can say is this stuff doesn't happen overnight. I'm not where I am. I mean, it's taken me years to get here. Still not where I want to be, but it's taken me years to get here, and stuff will happen. And I always tell guys a couple things. If you show up on time, show up when you say you're going to. If you call people back, communication, and answer your phone and do what you say you're going to do and do it right, you're going to be busy. When guys ask me.
Communication is so important that I would put that more important than anything else at the end of the day. And
I would agree with you.
That doesn't just go with pressure washing. That goes with any business out there. Any business. If you communicate what you're going to do, if you're going to answer your phone, if your customers has questions, you answer them truthfully, you answer them. If you don't know, don't lie.
That's right.
Get back with you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Be honest, man. If you don't know how to do something, or if you screwed something up, own it and do what it takes to fix it. For example, I'll give you another example on this hospital job we're on. We're doing the windows and the building, or we're washing the buildings first, and then we're doing the windows after. Well, my guys, because it's my fault, because I didn't tell them there was some interior courtyard that you can't see from the outside. Just walking around the hospital, you can't see them. So, and this was 3 weeks, probably a month ago now, that we finished that particular building. Well, I got a text message from one of the contacts there inside the hospital just a few days ago that said, some of these windows looks like it hadn't been touched or something like that. And she sent me a picture of one. Well, it was very evident, very, very clear that we missed it. So I texted her immediately back. I mean, within minutes, because that's what they're looking for at this point in time, because I've screwed up. Deep South Exterior has screwed up in their eyes. They've missed something. So I didn't make her wait. I didn't put her off till I finished the job. I didn't, whatever. I wanted to get back to her immediately. And I said, no problem. I said, I'll have my guy out there tomorrow and do it. So if it would have been really something serious for me to not be there that next day to get that taken care of. Why? Because these people pay me a lot of money every year. And I'm going to do whatever I can to get out there and fix that problem as soon as possible. I'm not going to put them off for a week until I can fit it in my schedule. I'm going to get out there the next day, if at all possible, and get it taken care of for them and communicate the whole way. Because I think, like you said, communication is key. If I would have made that woman wait and didn't get back to her that day, or made her wait a few hours, her mind is already in the direction of, well, they missed something. Now he's not responding back to me. What's going on here?
Yep.
So it was, that's just how I run my business. I can't speak for everybody else. And so far, thank God it's working for me. So
Communication is key. One of the biggest thing with communication, again, I don't care if you work for a nonprofit, I don't care what it is. Communication is key. Emailing, texting, communicate with what you're doing through the job. If they have questions, let them know right away. Communication is one thing that a lot of people struggle with. With the
right,
world that we live in, communication has gone to the wayside because everything is on this phone. Nobody wants to talk to anybody. Nobody wants to take it up. And so communication is definitely one of the biggest things that I think you can set yourself apart with from other companies at the end of the day is communication. Making, when you communicate to people and you let them know that even on the residential side, all right, thank you. Hey, Jason will be out there to wash your house tomorrow. He will do this, this, and this. You set those expectations, and then when Jason comes, he does the exact same thing what they said, and then he tells you what they're going to do. That customer is going to be like, I was definitely informed the whole time. I didn't know what was going on, how, all of that kind of stuff at the end of the day.
never had to guess, not one time.
Exactly.
Yeah,
All
I
right,
agree.
Rodney, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it very much. We had a good night here learning about commercial work. A lot of times, I know a lot of people ask about commercial work. Commercial work can definitely it can be its own niche, and this is just one niche of clean and build big buildings. There's niches of concrete, going down malls and stuff like that. This is just one kind of niche into the hospital, the doctors, and all of that kind of stuff. There's definitely money in any of it, no matter where you're at, if you know how to do it and make sure that you're bidding it right and knowing everything at the end of the day.
Okay.
So I hope everybody has a good week this week. If you, again, my pressure washing training will be in Fredericksburg. Go to pressurewashhelp.com/in-person training. You can find out about it there. Or if you want 30 days free in my membership, you can go to pressurewashhelp.com/free. I will see you next week. You can hang on, Ron.